Welcome to the Outer Realm with Michelle Desrochers and Amelia Pisano. Airing live on the United Public Radio Network, 105.3 FM in New Orleans.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Thursday night segment of The Outer Realm, broadcasting live here via International Public Radio and the United Public Radio Network, 105.3 FM from the beautiful city of New Orleans. The Outer Realm is fully sponsored by the amazing folks over at Folgers Coffee, Folgers, who have been with us on this journey from the very beginning. So we thank you, Folgers. We love you a whole lot. What is that?
That's Joe.
Who's still on, amazingly enough. Awesome. Anyway.
That's what happens when you have a producer. Just saying.
I know. It's like, what? Also, a huge thank you to Dr. Snick, the sonic surgeon, a.k.a. Justin Snicker, who is an award-winning composer of Halloween, horror, and sci-fi and darkware electronic music, which is available on Bandcamp, Spotify, iTunes, Amazon, and most streaming platforms. We thank him for his generous contribution of his voice and his music for our intro and our outro. Tonight, we welcome John Russell to the show for the very first time, and he's going to be discussing doppelgangers and the paranormal and all kinds of different experiences. They're really interesting, just reading the bio and the information he sent us. So I think we're going to have a whole lot of fun. But in order for everybody to participate in tonight's fun, you are going to have to go over to one of our 8 platforms. I highly recommend UFO Paranormal Radio on YouTube, and tag Amelia if there's a question if we don't catch it. International Public Radio, UFO Paranormal Network, and United Public Radio on Facebook, Canada's Most Haunted / Michelle Desrochers Facebook. Of course, The Outer Realm on Facebook, Joe Montaldo, UFO Undercover, News on the Flip Side. And if you're on Twitch, go over to UFO Paranormal Radio. I think I have everything. We will see all of your comments. We just may not be able to comment right away, but we will do our very best. After all, the show is about our amazing guest. And
John Russell
there
has been
go.
an internationally known professional psychic for almost half a century. You don't look it, but I sure believe you have the experience.
Thank you so
John
much.
Michelle,
Amelia, it's so great to be here. I really appreciate you guys having me. And it has been half a century. It doesn't feel like it, but it has been. But it sure feels like it to the old body, let me tell you.
Oh, well, thank you for joining us. Amelia is just familiarizing our listeners with you, and she's going to read off your bio.
Just gonna finish off the last one because John works with clients all around the world and just recently has filmed a TV pilot for the History Channel. So welcome. It's so good to see you. How are you?
I'm doing good. How are y'all this evening?
Good.
We're good. We're good. We can't complain. Good. It's Thursday. It's one day away from the weekend.
Yeah, there you go.
But we still work tomorrow night, Michelle, just saying.
At least I have Saturday off.
Yes. Yes.
So thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure.
What I like to do is start off the show, especially since it is your first time with us, and I'm sure it won't be the last, is just to familiarize, we'd like to our listeners to find out a little bit about you and what brought you to this journey into the paranormal. Was it childhood experiences? Was it just a fancy for the ghosts and goblins?
No, it was actually a childhood experience. I was kind of chosen. Yeah. And this happened when I was about 5 years old. Wow. I was sound asleep in bed at night, and my parents had a nightlight on in the hallway outside my bedroom in case I had to get up during the night or whatever. So I'm sound asleep in bed, and I wake up literally instantly wide awake in the middle of the night. And I thought, well, this is really strange. And the first thought that came to my head was maybe I heard a noise and that woke me here. So I kind of listened a little bit and didn't hear anything. Everything was quiet. So I raised up on my elbows in bed and looked around my room. And as I looked out, my bedroom door was open. As I looked down the hallway and the nightlights glow, there was this elderly black gentleman peering at me from around one of the doorways in the hall. And I screamed bloody murder because I'm 5 years old.
Yeah.
We're obviously white, didn't have anyone black living with us. And I don't think we even knew anyone black at the time. And so my assumption as a 5-year-old kid is that somebody's broken into the house. We have an intruder. There's a burglar, a robber, somebody in the house. So when I screamed, he walked around the doorway into the hall and started walking toward my bedroom and locked eyes with me and never looked away. And he was not misty. He was not translucent. He was not transparent. He was every bit as solid as you or I.
Wow.
And I can tell you what he had on. He had, and how he looked. He had close cropped white hair. He had a white mustache. So that was how I knew he was elderly. And he had on a red flannel shirt, khaki pants, black shoes, black belt. And like I say, every single bit as solid as you or I. And the closer he got to me, the louder I screamed. And as my parents began to come running, he began to disappear then. He began to get translucent. And almost like the Cheshire cat, he began to vanish from his feet up till his head was left, and that vanished. And then my parents came into the room, and I was just sobbing uncontrollably. And I said, there's somebody in the house, even though I'd just seen him vanish. And my fright was so real and my insistence was so real that there was someone in the house that my dad actually went through the whole house, looked under the beds, looked in the closets, checked all the doors and windows. And of course, everything was closed up tight. And they said, well, you know, you saw something on TV and it caused you to have a nightmare. And I knew that wasn't it. I knew I had seen someone that was as real as you or I that then vanished into thin air. And my thought was, why? And is he going to come back? And is he going to talk to me when he comes back? And is he going to ask me to do something weird or scary? And what did he want in the first place? So it took me forever to get back to sleep. And then it took me a long while after that to understand what had happened to get comfortable with it. I spent weeks and days looking over my shoulder and looking for
a little bit of PTSD going on.
Well, you're a small child, and I'm sure they were just trying to comfort you.
And then all of a sudden, I got this revelation and I understood what had happened. And I had been chosen for this awakening. He had come to me to open up this portal to the other side and to awaken my psychic gift. Now, having opened that portal to the other side, I've had way over 1,000 physical paranormal manifestations in my life. These are not things I dream, envision, meditate, hallucinate, whatever. These are real experiences that we capture on film, we capture on video, we capture on audio. Many times are witnessed by other people. And I've had well over 1,000 of those. So that dimension of interacting with the other side and discovering that the other side and that psychic powers and that the supernatural is real was one of the things that he opened up for me. And then the other thing that he opened up was my psychic gift. And I became aware of all that. And it was like, oh, okay. He didn't come to scare the life out of me. That was just a byproduct of what happened.
Right.
And, you know, sorry, kid, but look, we're going to do this. And down the road, you're going to be happy because you're going to help people all around the world someday. And I have been able to. That's one of the marvelous things about that. And since that time, I've never been scared again for any experience that I've had, any paranormal psychic experience. I've never been frightened again, never been scared again, even as a child. So it was, to me, a blessing in retrospect.
I have to ask, did the man appear to you a second time, or was it just the one time?
He never has. And I've always asked him, come back. And I promise this time I won't scream.
Wow, right.
He's never come back, but I kind of get the feeling that he may have been out there somewhere, kind of keeping an eye on me or keeping tabs on me.
That's what I was going to say. Maybe he was like a guide at the time.
Exactly. Yeah. That was the feeling I got. It's like, okay, you know, I'm going to come and open this up for this guy, and then I'm going to kind of keep tabs on him, make sure he stays on the right path with everything. And it's been a marvelous life. So that was how it all started.
Wow. So you're coming into adulthood, you're having all of these experiences. What made you decide to, because I mean, children on average, have paranormal experiences. They don't always realize it. They don't always analyze it. They just know that, oh, this is my friend so-and-so, or this one scares the bejesus out of me pretty regularly, or,
Right, right.
it's not as thought out as it was for you. Like, what age did you realize, like really in depth, that this was a path that you were going to have to expand on and share with others?
Well, that occurred then shortly thereafter.
Wow.
Yeah, I was about between the age of 5 and 6, I guess maybe about 6. And I
Wow.
had begun to have these experiences, and then I began to understand why I was having the experiences and
Right.
to begin to accept them as normal. And then the understanding of my psychic gift, that awakening, that occurred. I was out in the backyard playing with a toy, running around the backyard.
Mm-hmm.
And this car pulled in the driveway. I didn't recognize people in it. So I ran the house, got mom and dad, and I said, "Hey, there's somebody in the driveway. I don't know who this is." And they said, "Okay, we'll come out and check." So they come out and they go, "Oh, these are friends of ours." I said,
Mm-hmm.
"Okay." So they're greeting their friends and they're all standing outside talking in a little group there before they go inside. And I come up and kind of eavesdrop for a little bit. And then I looked up at the people and I just barged into the conversation and I said, "You guys just went on vacation." And I said, "You drove that car that's sitting in the driveway and you had 2 kids with you. They're not with you today, but you took 2 kids with you on this vacation. And you went to this hotel and it had this many stories and it was painted this color. And there were these trees in front that looked like this. And the pool area in back looked like this." And the guy, the husband, was kind of like, "Huh?
What is with this kid?
What is with this kid?" But I will
Yeah.
never forget. It was the greatest thing on the planet. His wife, she was slack jawed and her eyes bugged out and literally got bigger and bigger and bigger. And she looked at my parents and she goes, "How the hell could he possibly know that?" And my parents were like, "What?" And she was like, "How the hell could he possibly know that?" And my mom said something like, "Oh, kids and their imaginations, this, how they go off on tangents and tell stories." And she goes, "No, no, no. This is not a kid's imagination. How the
Right.
hell could he know this? We
Mhm.
just went on vacation. We drove that car. We took our 2 kids. We stayed at this hotel that looked exactly like he described. How the hell could he possibly know that? That's what we were
Mhm.
coming over to tell you, was about the vacation we had taken.
Wow.
How the hell
Wow.
could he possibly know this?"
You're
And
so
she's looking
young
at me
to
like
have
I
an
have cobras
understanding.
growing out my ears.
Yeah.
And my parents
You
said something to the effect of, "Go play, John." I was like, "Okay, nice to meet you
well,
folks." And off I went.
you
And
shook them up.
they
You
were
shook
just
them
shell
all up,
shocked. Oh, they were
literally.
shell shocked. They never came to
Yeah.
visit my parents again.
Wow.
So that was when I discovered I have the
That's
psychic
deep
gift that
though
I can
for a
see.
little guy. I
Yeah,
mean, like I said, most kids would just sort of like, okay, it's an experience. But between the ages of 5 and 6 to say, I really need to get a deep understanding of this and
exactly.
start reading, people is
Mhm.
pretty
Yeah,
interesting.
and I understood that I could do that, that I could see into their lives, I could see into their past, their present, I could make predictions that were accurate, I could tell what was going on in their thought processes and their emotions, their
Mm,
environment. And then from there on, it was like, okay, this is real.
mm-hmm,
Now, there's a lot of BS out there, and I
mm-hmm,
had learned even at a young age that in religions and in spirituality and the paranormal, everything, there's
mm-hmm.
phonies and con artists and frauds and self-deluded people and so on and so forth. So, having learned that at a very early age, I began to study around age 12
Right.
everything I could get my hands on. Religious psychology, parapsychology, the paranormal,
At 12.
everything.
Psychology at 12. That's
Psychology. I was
impressive.
deep into psychology books,
That's hard.
and
That's a hard thing to get a grasp on, let alone at 12.
yeah, and it was something that made sense to me, and that I understood, and that I realized I could meld all that together and get an understanding of where this thing was taking me, and get
Mm-hmm.
an understanding of people and their processes, and better be able to understand what people were doing when they were phonies or con artists or fraud, and how to combat that.
At 10 years old?
Yeah, 12, about
12.
Yeah.
Were you guided to do this? Because this isn't normal for a 12-year-old, not
That's
in
what I'm
any
saying.
day.
Psychology at 12, what?
You know,
It
I thought
was-
I was impressed with myself because I did that at 15, but 12?
Right. Yeah,
Seriously?
I think I was semi-guided into it, but it was a passion of mine because I had seen with this gift came this really keen insight into human nature and to what people were doing and what they were actually meaning or doing when they said one thing and then they did another. And I could see these things. And it was this huge curiosity to me. It was like, okay, the truth is out there and I've got to find the truth. I'm going to find the truth. I'm going to find out who's lying, who's not, what works, what doesn't. And so that became my burning passion. And the other side aided me in that and guided me to these experiences. And there were things that occurred in my life, and they have for most of my life, but especially early on, I would be thrust into these situations where it was like I was almost invisible to the people that were there. And they would act out their true selves and act out what they were really up to and what their real motivations were. And I would see that and I would go, aha. So then I knew how to spot it from then on. And I knew how to spot when people were being disingenuous, or I learned how to call out the frauds and the phonies and all that type of thing. So it became a continuing thing with me. And it was like, okay, let's pursue the truth. And in pursuing the truth, let's continue this and see how good we can get with it, how good I can get with it, how far I can develop this. And you never master anything. Nobody ever masters anything. That's just not possible. But I wanted to get as good as I possibly could. And so now I'm 67, been reading professionally for 50 years, and I still study. I still learn. I still call on my guys and say, hey, let's make this even better. Let's help even more people. Let's get even more accurate. Let's get even a greater understanding of what's happening in the spiritual realm. And at our very best, we know so little. I mean, we really, really know so little. We think we know so much, but we really know so little. And even after all these years and all the experiences I've had, it's like, man, hadn't even scratched the surface, you know.
So true.
It's a never-ending quest.
With all of your years of experience in as a reader, as an experiencer, as a witness to all of this beauty that we have, because it is a beautiful gift in so many ways.
Yeah.
What do you notice is the biggest change from then and now?
In myself or in the field in general?
Yeah. Both.
Both. Start with whatever one you want. Yeah.
Well, in myself, I think the biggest change has been that, when I began reading professionally at age 18, I actually started reading about the age of 14, 15, somewhere around in there, and then turned professional at age 18. And with youth comes all this naivete and this ignorance, and you're going to live forever. You're 10 feet tall, you're bulletproof. And I think I was a little cavalier with my gift because that kind of goes with my personality. And I think with age, then I begin to get the maturity and begin to understand, oh, wow, this is making a big, crucial difference in my life and in the lives of others. And you have to respect it and understand it in a different way than when you're young and your hair is on fire and all of this type of thing. So I think that was the biggest change for me, was a little more, I guess, toning things down a little bit, because I've always had a big personality. I've always liked to joke and goof around and make people laugh and all that type of thing. And some of that carried over into my psychic work when I was young. And I used to delight in doing things like I would see people at a bar and didn't know them from Adam, but I would get something psychic about them, and I'd go up and say, hey, how you doing, man? Oh, hey. If somebody's been drinking, they may not know that they don't know you, right? And I said, how's the sale of the ranch coming? And they'd look at me and they'd go, how do you know about that? And I was like, oh, well, we met at so-and-so and we talked about it, right? Are you still planning on selling the ranch? Well, I don't know. I said, well, if you are, now's a really good time. I said, during the next couple of months, you really want to get this thing done. So I used to just have a blast doing things like that to people.
Yeah. Wow.
And then the older I got, it was like, not so much,
Yeah.
A little more subtle.
You kind of tone down a little bit and you kind of take things a little more
That's
seriously.
true.
But I used to have a lot of fun with people, and
I
and
think
now,
you
as
still
far as
can.
the field itself goes,
Mm.
it's always been rife with phonies and frauds and self-deluded people. But I think nowadays, even more so, because everybody's a psychic, everybody's a medium, everybody's a this or that or the other. And, people will get a box of tarot cards, and they'll read the little
Mm.
pamphlet, they'll read a book on, and now I'm a tarot reader.
You just read my mind, literally. Those
He's like, I know, it's what I do.
You just literally read my mind. I was thinking it as you said it. It is a big issue in the field.
It's
It
an
is.
industry, though.
It's
Industry
a
is
business.
It's
But
becoming
tarot
an industry.
cards,
And
oracles, it's an industry, right?
Yeah,
And that's
it
why
is.
they tell you
And
anyone can do this.
yeah, and not anyone can, because look, we all have a degree of psychic ability, but what people have to understand, to relate that and to extrapolate that, we can all play the piano. Now, after 2 years of lessons, I might play chopsticks, and that's it. And some 5-year-old kid somewhere might listen to Beethoven on the radio and sit down and play it on the piano. I'm never going to reach that level, no matter what I do. Okay. So everyone has psychic abilities, but not everyone is going to reach the same level as someone like myself that has done this professionally for all these years and has all this feedback about the accuracy and so on and so forth, and the phenomenal amount of experiences I've had. So not everybody's going to get there. Not everybody that calls themselves a psychic is. Not everybody that calls themselves a reader is. It's like it became popular and everybody wanted to jump on the bandwagon. And I think one of the biggest changes I've seen in it now is that, and there's always been a few people that were this way, but now too many people are out there, charging ridiculous amounts of money for readings and making tons of money, and you buy their course or you take their special thing or you get their special training, and it's always hundreds of dollars, sometimes thousands of dollars. And, this person is not one whit better than I am or you are, most of the time way less experienced, but they've got the spiel, and people fall for that, unfortunately, and that's one of the things that I'm always campaigning against. And it's like when one of the biggest changes I can think of, like when Sylvia Brown was alive, she charged $850, and I got some of her clients called me, and one of them was talking to me, and all of them told me that they didn't know who she was reading for, but it wasn't them.
Wow.
And so I would question them. I said, well, how's my reading been for you? And said, oh, you blew my hair back. It's fantastic. It's really great. So this one person I was talking to, I said, for $850 an hour, you ought to get the lottery numbers and, favor or something. And she goes, oh, honey, it's not $850 an hour. I said, well, yeah, I looked on her website. And she goes, no, honey, it's not $850 an hour. It's $850 a reading. The reading may last 10, 15 minutes. And
it's just one reading. And since she passed, they've reduced it to $600.
Woohoo!
I know.
Wow.
And and a lot of times you're not getting her. You're getting people that, when she was alive, you were getting people that work for her. But she's just an example of what's happening out there with a lot of celebrity psychics. She's not the only one that's doing that. We're not attacking her.
She's
That's
cheap
all
compared
I'm
to
saying.
some of them.
Yeah.
Or was, shall I say? Yeah.
And then like John Edward, and my wife and I have seen John Edward in person, and I believe he has a legitimate gift.
Yeah, I've seen him.
He made the statement one time that he would never charge more than what he would be willing to pay for a reading. And then after Sylvia Brown died, boom, he jacked his up to $850.
He talks too fast for me, John. He talks too fast for me, and I feel like it's just right by you, and you can't grasp everything. So you're just like, I don't know. I don't know how I feel about him. I think all of the celebrity psychics are gifted. They all are gifted. They do get a lot on.
To a degree,
but I think they lose themselves somewhere along the road.
I think they buy into their own hype, and I think they lose the reason that we're here. And, a lot of times in my career, I have refused to read for people because I told them, hey, look, you don't need it. You need this one thing. And then I've refunded people's money that have paid for readings. and called them up and said, listen, I just refunded your money. This is what you need. You need this one thing in your life right now. Go do that. And then down the road, you can get back with me or whatever. So that's my, my wife kicks me in the shins and goes, you'll never be rich. I was like, well, but I go to bed and I have a good conscience.
No,
and
but you're
the guys on
humble
the other side that provide all this stuff to me, they're not going to do anything bad to me.
No,
I always say the best
humble.
are the most humble.
No ego.
No.
Yeah.
Those are the best readers.
Ego in this field. There isn't. And I think that's the problem. Ego steps in and then everything goes to hell in a handbag. I've seen some amazingly gifted people just completely get lost.
Yeah, go off the rails entirely.
Yeah.
Whether it's mediumship, whether it's film, the industry, the paranormal itself, let's face it, there's a TV show for everything. And unfortunately, I've had people come up to me because I've filmed for years and say, trying to say, oh, yeah, I film. I'm going to teach you the ropes. I'm like, oh, okay. I'd like that. Sure. Then they come back and like, oh, I just feel like a real idiot. That's happened a few times to me. I'm just like, that's okay. It's,
I hear you.
It's too much. It's such an industry. I feel like we're going through the Ghostbusters era from the 80s. How it comes in waves, and now we're for the last decade we've been in this big wave, and it doesn't seem to be stopping anytime soon.
I know. Yeah, well, just like healthcare became a bottom line industry, the psychic industry became a bottom line industry. And everything is motivated by the bottom line and by profit and by money, and I've seen that happen in the UFO community now, and there are people that are charging these outrageous sums for a supposed contact and all these other things. And it's like, oh man, and that's become the norm now. And so my voice is lost out there in this, it's like, I'm trying to get people to understand.
You're here just desperately want an experience of any sort. And some people will pay anything to get it.
Exactly.
And that price, however, can, in our field, that price could become a lot more expensive.
True.
Depending on what it is you're wishing for.
Nobody can guarantee they're going to have that experience. Not in all honesty and not in all.
No, but when you're starstruck by, I won't give the name of the celebrity who's really big in the UFO right now. No, I can't. I can't.
Yeah. We all know. We're
going to know.
We all know who we're talking, who I'm speaking of.
Yes.
Went from having to get the truth out to charging to have an experience with him. And an exorbitant amount of money as well to be there. And I believe that when you really want it that bad, even if it's not happening, it'll happen to you in your own mind. You'll look at the smallest thing and say, yes.
There it is.
It's a power of manifestation.
Whether it is or not. And this individual in the beginning used to guarantee contact. Back when my wife and I were living in New York, when he very first started, he would guarantee that. And then I watched over the years the papers you had to sign, the contract that you had to sign to participate become more and more exclusionary.
Really?
And less defined, more and more expensive. And it's like, okay.
Is it like a non-disclosure?
Yeah, almost. Yeah.
Wow. Oh, wow. That speaks volumes, just saying. That speaks that's really sad because he came from such a good place. And his last documentary, I just went, oh my Lord.
How the mighty have fallen. Yeah.
He has changed so much. It's so sad. I hope he finds himself again because he was doing the right thing.
And I think a lot of it, I think money gets you. I think money gets its hooks in you.
Fame,
and when it does,
power, exposure.
It's all evil. It's all evil.
And when it does, man, it's you're gone. You're down the tubes, and it's and that's one good thing about being a biker. It's like I have kind of a natural built-in resistance to the BS. Because it's like I've been this biker since I was 15 years old. I've been in the biker culture forever and a day. And I mean, serious biker on my current bike. I've got almost 114,000 miles on it.
Bikers are my favorite people. I grew up with them at my house every Sunday. So they're my favorite people because my brother rode.
We're just down to earth. We're honest. We're resistant to a lot of the BS. And it's, we don't fall for it. So I think that's been a saving grace in my life.
So that's kind of like I would say like an oxymoron sort of thing. Like it's the flip side, because you're
Yeah.
this spiritual, enlightened individual. Not that bikers aren't, but you know, they have this gruff image of, like I said, I
Right.
don't put up with any BS, and
Right.
you know, and
That's
and
it.
and here you are.
Yeah.
But they're
Just-
really
Yeah, completely like out there. What
Big
did your
teddy bears.
compadres think of all that?
Well, you know, it's interesting. Most of my biker buddies accept it, and you know, I think a lot of bikers have a belief in the supernatural and paranormal, psychic
Sure, I'm
gifts.
sure they see a lot out
And
there on the road.
you know, for one thing, there's just more of a natural connection with nature when you're riding than when you're in a car.
True.
And I think, you know, bikers pick up on that. And I think most bikers in general have a good BS meter. And it's just, you know, it's a very grounded way to live and a very honest way to live. And it's, you know,
second time you've done that. Yes.
yeah. And people can see through, you know, the phonies and the con artists and the stuff. And, you know, when you're in the biker culture, most bikers are hardworking people. You value your money. You know what it takes to do something. Most people work on their own bikes. They're pretty close to nature, you know, barbecues and outings and bonfires and all this type of thing. So it's a very real way of life, and you learn to winnow out the BS really quickly. And I think that's the, you know,
Right.
the defining thing there. Yeah,
just-
living in the moment, exactly.
Absolutely. And like you said, you're grounded. You're always grounded because you're always with nature. And Thomas Rivers, who's a friend of ours, said the art of motorcycle maintenance and riding, living in the moment.
Right. Zen and the art of motorcycle maintenance. Yep.
But oh my gosh, I love that. I love that they accept it as well, because you do see a lot when you're putting that kind of mileage on your bike in your life.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
So,
Well, that's why I wrote my first book, Riding with Ghost Angels and the Spirits of the Dead. You know, for bikers, they're all familiar with Then Came Bronson, which ran on TV for a couple of years, very short-lived series. But for everybody that saw it, it was one of the most influential things in a biker's life ever. And just the short background of it was Bronson was this guy that was a three-piece suit and tie type guy working in a corporate establishment. And a friend of his committed suicide or died or whatever. And anyways, it affected him so dramatically that he left the corporate world, got this motorcycle back that he had sold the guy, I think. And he packed everything he could on the bike and took off to discover himself and discover America and try and make sense out of everything. And so that's every biker's dream. Have enough money in the pocket. You put what you've got on the bike. You head out, destination unknown. You just ride when you want to. You stop when you want to. And you go everywhere and you see the world. So that's every biker's dream. So that influenced me as it did all bikers of my generation, and still continues to influence people. It's still out there and around. You can still see it here and there. So I had been in New York, moved to New York, living with my wife upstate. And out of the blue, I was contacted by Atlas Media Corporation and did a screen test for them, and eventually went to pilot to shoot for the History Channel. And unfortunately, that never aired. But my producer and I became very good friends, and we kept working on show ideas for television. And so one of the things I came up with was, let's do a psychic Then Came Bronson. So I'll ride into town on my motorcycle. We'll do the paranormal investigation, resolve it, and then I'll leave town on the bike and go ride to the next town.
Cool.
So we're working on that idea. And he says, why don't you take and write a short blog and just little short snippets of things, of some of the paranormal experiences you've had. And we can use that to refer, TV producers and things to, and get them to look at that. And here's some more of what John's experienced. Here's some more of what John's about. And I said, okay. So when I started this blog, all of a sudden I began to have these wild, extravagant, bizarre, over the top, even for me, paranormal experiences and manifestations that were central to riding my motorcycle and my riding.
Somebody wants to get you moving on it.
Yeah. And I was like, wow, this is incredible. So I put a few of those in the blog. And down the road, it was like, these experiences are so over the top. These experiences are so incredible. I
Mm-hmm.
have to take them and expand them into the full form of what I actually experienced and what I learned from that. And then I have to make a book out of that. This has to come together as a book. So that's how that book was born. That came out of my motorcycle rides. And there's a few chapters in there. There's some retrospectives that go back a little ways. There's some things where I'm not on the bike, but mostly it's centered around the experiences I had on my motorcycle rides. And it really is crazy. It's really bizarre. It's like it's nothing. It's unlike anything you've ever read.
Right.
And to make that statement as an author, I have clients that are authors and agents and editors, and I have friends that are authors and agents and editors. And the first thing that anyone will tell you, there's no unique book. Give me comp titles. In other words, give me titles that are comparative. Give me comp titles. And so I kept telling everybody, I said, there's nothing like this out there. They're really seriously. And so this editor friend of mine read it and said, this is the most unique manuscript I've ever read. There's nothing like this out there.
Thank you. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Right.
So that was a really neat thing. And I'm able to tell people, look, you're going to read this. It's not like, I don't care how many paranormal books you've read, how many books about the supernatural, how many books about psychics. You've not read anything like this.
Right.
And so that was the legacy I wanted to leave. And then I had kind of been puttering around with the idea of talking about how I grew up and those experiences and so on and so forth. And that finally came together as the book A Knock in the Attic, which was released this year in February. And that goes back to that experience with the old black ghost awakening me, coming up through my childhood, my young adulthood, into my adulthood, and talks about shooting the history channel TV pilot, meeting Uri Geller in person, and doing all these wonderful things. So it's a pretty marvelous book in itself. And now I'm working on a third one. I've got a third one going.
Good for you.
Exciting. Are you going to give us a little bit about it?
Do what now?
You're going to let us know a little bit. Tell us a little.
Oh, yeah. The third book, it's going to be 20 ways to increase your psychic abilities.
Oh,
20 ways. Wow.
Yeah. Each chapter, there'll be 20 chapters, and each chapter will cover one thing. Like, for example, the first chapter is on psychometry. So it takes you and leads you through the hand. You don't have to know anything at all about anything. It defines psychometry, tells you what it is in practical terms. Then it tells you how to begin to learn it, how to practice it, and then the real world application of it. Because all of these things, if you learn psychometry and you go to a party and you say, let me see your ring, and somebody gives you the ring and you go, you bought this at Macy's at Christmas time. Oh, wow.
And all of a sudden you're the life of the party.
Yeah, but parlor trick, right? You haven't done anything.
Right.
So all of these things have a real world application. Once you learn it and get it to that point, then you can take this out into the real world and do things with it for yourself and for other people that help you, benefit you, help you and benefit others. So each chapter will define a specific technique, tell you what it is, tell you how to learn it, how to practice it, how to get good at it, and then the real world application of it. And it literally walks you through it step by step, holds your hand, takes you through it step by step. So it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm about halfway through with that now. And I've done so many podcasts this year. I've done over 70 podcasts this year.
Wow.
And I've got my full-time clientele. I'm taking on new clients all the time as well. And then trying to write this third book. So I've kind of slowed down on the book a little bit, but now I'm hoping maybe around March next year it'll be out. So
you should do some of the paranormal conferences. Do you do any of those?
I don't. I used to when I was younger, but now I haven't. And right now I just haven't had time to do anything at all except, do a podcast, go get on the phone with my clients and try and get back to my book. And it's like, we had my high school reunion this month. I couldn't go. I couldn't get away. Like this month alone, I'm doing 15 podcasts.
Right.
You should make it a point, and I'm being told to tell you, you should make it a point of doing at least one when the book comes out nearby.
Oh yeah.
Nearby.
I believe it. Yeah. I'm going to try and do that. Yeah, I'm going to try.
There's definitely a reason for it.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I love psychometry. I think that people who are tactile, that need to touch and feel everything that they see, are usually really good at that. So that's something to keep in mind if you're listening and you're that person that has to touch everything when you're walking around a store. You should get that book.
I'm like that with
you're
buildings.
Probably really good at that.
Old buildings. I have to touch them and feel
I have to touch everything. People need to walk away from me when they see me because I have to touch everything. It's terrible. I used to get scolded for it all the time as a child. Do you have to touch everything in the store? Do you have to? I'm like, well, yeah, I don't know why, but I can't help it. I can't help it.
Yeah, absolutely. I understand that. Yeah. And I even like to touch people. It's like, oh,
that could land you in jail.
I was going to say, I've had a couple of psychics want to do that.
The old days, you could get away with that. That's right. You could get away with a lot of stuff back then. That's a whole other show.
That's a whole other show.
That's a whole other show.
I know. That's insane. The touching. I had a medium come to touch me one time. I need to feel your heart chakra. I'm like, what? I look at his wife. She goes, he does it all the time. All right.
I was one of those pregnant women that did not like people touching her belly. I felt like I had to protect her energy and I didn't like anyone near her.
But right.
Yeah.
Obviously you've had all kinds of experiences. Do you fall into experiences with really malevolent non-human entities or interdimensional entities? I mean, some people would say demonic, other people would say extraterrestrial, other people would say, oh no, just,
I haven't. I've done.
Oh, really?
I haven't. I've done paranormal investigations since I was 12.
Wow.
I've been a psychic all these years. I have these deep, intimate connections with spirits on the other side. And I have not experienced the Hollywood version of the demons, the exorcism, anything like that.
Wow.
I haven't experienced anything that I was frightened of or uneasy of or felt would harm me or anyone around me or anything like that. To the contrary, the majority of my experiences have been very positive. Have been very protective, very helpful. The guides, guardian angels, whatever you want to call them, on the other side, I call them my guys. It's an umbrella term for everybody.
My posse, yeah,
and they have literally saved my life many times. They've helped me, they've protected me, they've guided me. But I haven't found any of the there's not a demon behind every bush.
No.
I haven't found any cases of what I would term a true possession. There's been a lot of things where I've been asked to investigate things. Especially like possible possessions and things like that. And all of a sudden, this is coming up in podcasts. And we're talking about it a lot. And most of the time, what I have found is that when I go to investigate this, there's either mild mental illness, drug abuse, drug use, misinterpretation of what's going on around them, overactive imagination. And one of the things I call out, because people still tend to use this, they say, yeah, but listen, there was this small lady. She was like 5'2" and maybe weighed 100 pounds. And when this spirit would come upon her, it would take like 5 or 6 grown men to hold her down and all this. Okay, here we go. When I was young, for a brief period of time, very short period of time, I worked at a state mental hospital, and we had dual diagnosis clients, which were mental retardation and mental illness, both. And these guys would launch off and go crazy and attack you and all this kind of thing. Now, I was very proficient in several martial arts, but you can't defend yourself with the clients. You have to find a way. The state taught you ways to basically calm them down and restrain them without hurting them, without you getting hurt. Okay. So in this orientation, which was 2 weeks long to go to work there, everyone in our class had to become a client. And we had to act out, thrash about as much as we could, resist as much as we could to keep from being taken down, put in one of these restraints. And guess what? Little tiny gals in there, 5 or 6 guys to hold them down. Average person, 5 or 6 guys to hold them down. We had a handicapped guy who was crippled, 5 or 6 guys to hold him down. So, that's no evidence of demonic energy. I mean, you start looking on the internet nowadays and you look at any news site and you see some crazy lady in the police station protesting her ticket, and I ain't going to pay this. And she goes out in the hall and she starts knocking over stuff. And one or two cops comes to say, hey, lady, you got to get out of here. And she turns on them. They start wrestling with her and they can't subdue her. And pretty soon 2 or 3 more cops come. And you got 5 or 6 cops on this one little woman. That's not demonic possession. That's just average energy. But people don't understand that.
Mm-hmm.
So, you try and get that out there and get people to understand, that if it was like a real supernatural, real demonic energy, 20 people couldn't hold them down. It would be. So you have to understand the realities of these things. And like I say, a lot of the things that I've been called in to investigate, drug abuse, drug use, mild mental illness, just overactive imagination. Some people just, misinterpret everything that happens as something supernatural when it's not.
Mindset
and their imagination fires up and they run with that and they go with that. But no, I've never found anything like that. Now, this is not to deny the reality of evil. Look around the world, read the newspaper every day. There's evil in the world. People are evil. If you extrapolate that, there certainly has to be in the spiritual realm. I remember a buddy of mine and I, my wife and this buddy who was also somewhat psychic, and he's on the other side now. And he was blind. And so that was when we lived in New York. My wife had a business in the city and we used to go into the city shopping. And so one day we took him and went in, we had lunch and did some things. And this was shortly after 9/11. And we came to a crosswalk and we were standing there waiting for the light to change. And there was no wind. It wasn't breezy or anything. And all of a sudden, this entity blew past us so fast, so close and so fast that our clothes literally rippled from the breeze this entity created.
Wow. The energy.
Yeah. And our clothes literally blew like there was a wind. Our clothes literally rippled. And we had this thing, this me and this guy, and we would like counter check each other. It was like, you say what you experienced and I'll tell you if that's what I'm getting. And so we would double check each other that way. And so he said, did you just feel that? And I said, yeah. And I said, what did you get? He said, you go first. I said, whatever it was malevolent and it was on the way somewhere to do something bad. And he said, that's exactly what I got. So, there are these entities that we would describe as maybe malevolent or maybe, dangerous or whatever. Let's go back to the biker world. Let's go back to the clubs. And, right there we can say, okay, if this guy goes after somebody that's hurt one of his brothers, is he demonic? No, he's just
eye for an eye, right?
He's eye for an eye. He's just obeying a code.
Yeah.
And so maybe some of these things on the other side, maybe somebody here has done something so egregious that they're like, okay, this guy gets it now, So we don't know. So much of this is unseen and we try and plumb the depths of it. And it's pretty much hidden from us. I like to say the other side plays peekaboo with us, and it does. And but that's really the only types of things I've encountered. And, I've never seen the demon behind every bush thing. And I'm not even sure if I believe in demons per se.
That's a tough one. There are people who don't believe in angels and demons at all. They believe in different forms of extraterrestrials or interdimensional beings. They just look at them as maybe from other parallel dimensions. I think, we grew up, we're taught religion, it's instilled into us. You have your angels, and you have to have your fallen angels, your balance somehow.
Yeah, if you believe that religious construct, yeah.
Well, exactly, and I can assure you, there's a lot of people listening who do.
You're doing that through the eyes of the glasses of the Bible, this or that or the other, and that's what I've striven to get away from in my life. Is absolutely, let's get rid of all the constructs, the dogma, the rituals, the traditions, and let's find out what this is and call it what it is and interact with it as it is. And I remember one time I was asked to be on this pagan radio show, and they were truly of the pagan religion, the official pagan religion, and they practiced all the dogma and tradition of the pagan religion. So I was asked to be a guest on this show, And they said, "Are you pagan?" And I said, "Well, in many aspects of my life, I live pagan traditions probably, but I'm not officially pagan, no." And, I've had all these paranormal experiences, and I'm the psychic. I've got this huge retinue of client testimonials on my website that can tell you I'm the real deal and all this. Yeah, but you're not pagan. And so they didn't want me on the show because I wasn't literally traditionally pagan. So
tell me you were honorary pagan.
Yeah, there you go. So we have all this nonsense out there that you have to belong to this, or you have to be that, or you have to believe this, and it's like
there's labels on everything. Yeah,
and it comes from the other side. It comes from our realm as well as the religious realm. There's a prejudice there as well. So that's something I've always striven to get rid of completely in my life and not participate in, and not go into something with any preconceived, it's this or it's that, or I have to view it as this or that or whatever. But what is it? And then let's go from there.
It surprised me how much ego is in this field that we're supposed to be so spiritual. It really surprises me. Do you feel that way as well?
Oh, absolutely. The fact that people take themselves so seriously and are so convinced that they have found the right way or the path or the thing, or that they know who the UFO people are and what their intents are, or they know exactly what it's like on the other side. It's like, no, you don't. You'll know when you get there. We get little hints and bits and pieces of it now, but we don't know exactly.
No, I'm wondering if you feel this way. I feel like when someone's crossed over and I connect with them, that your perspective is of their faith and where they're at, not necessarily yours. And you have to be open to that.
Right.
What do you think?
A lot of the times my experience has been with someone, when they do cross over, they shed those dogmas and tradition and ritual that they had while they were in the flesh. And it's like, oh, okay, this ain't it. This is something else. This is something different. There was a preacher friend I had a long time ago. He's on the other side now. And one of the few religious preachers that I thought ever had any sense and was really a legitimate good man. And he used to stand up before his congregation and say, this was a Christian denomination. And he used to stand up and say, you know what? When we get to the other side, we're all going to be so shocked and so surprised.
It's true. It's true.
Yes,
no one really knows what the other side is.
Exactly right. We get these hints from the people that are there, the people that I communicate with from the other side. And there's still this very incomplete knowing, but I've gotten some nuggets along the way. One thing, for example, people say, well, you haven't crossed over. Look, if you died, you crossed over, you're there, and the way that it was shown to me was one of the spirit guides came to me and said, okay, here's your analogy. You're in a car. The car represents your body. You're driving along, the car stalls and quits. You open the door, you get out, you're no longer in your body. You've crossed over, you're there, you're out. Right. And so this is the same way with the other side. If you die, guess what? You've crossed over, you're there. Now, whether you decide to do this, that, or the other, or what you decide to do when you're there is entirely up to you. People say, oh, well, you're earthbound, or you're tied to this, or you're tied to that. No.
Well, you have some people who don't even realize that they're dead.
Well, I think they do.
I've had spirits say, I'll say, you're dead. And they're like, no, you're dead. No, pretty sure it's you. But maybe it is me. I don't know.
It's like the people that don't understand that when you go to the other side, maybe you left a daughter behind and you want to hang around that daughter for a while and watch over her and protect her and guide her if you can and try and communicate with her. You're not earthbound. You're just making that decision, making that choice to do that. And the other thing that we don't understand, we have such this narrow viewpoint that we think that the universe is encapsulated within our perception. So that if we see a ghost here, oh, that ghost must be earthbound. Well, that ghost appeared for 15 seconds and then maybe across the world by now doing something else.
Dimensional, do you think? Parallel dimensions? Do you think there's different levels that they.
Yeah, I think there may be.
Yeah.
But the point is that it's like, we encapsulate everything through our perception. We look at history, we look at the world as it is right now, and we say, okay, this is the way things are. And we neglect tens of thousands of years of history and of evidence and of this that, and the other. It's like we live this short lifespan, and in our 20, 30 years that we've lived, or 40 or 50, 60, whatever, we've decided this is the way that it is, not realizing that we're going to be out of here in an eye blink, and this thing's going to continue on. And we've glimpsed a little bitty, teeny tiny piece of it in the process. And we think that little teeny tiny piece is all of it, that we've understood it all, that we've gained it all, that we've have this perspective. We have no perspective,
Right.
It's like, I absolutely love when scientists, so-called, tell us 10,000 years ago, this is how life was on Earth. Are you kidding me?
How do you know?
Kidding me? Come on. Come on.
I want to know how you know.
How ridiculous can you possibly get? How presumptuous can you possibly get? It's like we have no clue. It's like if we do good to remember what we had for breakfast yesterday.
Right.
Yesterday, I can't remember what I ate this morning.
There you go. There you go. And it's like, we have all these things that we state our facts and our absolute truths and this, that, and the other. We have no clue. We have no idea. They have, I remember I saw one of, the dinosaurs died out and then people came. And then I saw a scientific study done one time that said they found human footprints side by side with the dinosaurs' footprints and the fossil record, indicating that we coexisted, and on and on and on. So nobody friggin' knows. Scientists try and put this together the way the rest of us do, and a lot of it's guesswork. I look at Stanton Friedman's book, all the times that science got it wrong, And
he was a great man.
Yeah. And it's like Skinwalker Ranch. I tweeted Brandon Fugel, and I told him, look, science hasn't caught up with the paranormal, and it's not going to. You got to send in the wizards, if you're going to understand this thing. Right. Science is an adjunct to a psychic or a mediumistic gift.
Right.
You can take an EMF meter, or you can get EVP, or you can take a REM pod or whatever, and you can have a spirit activate that. And you go, okay, there's a spirit present. Yes. Who is it? Why are they there? What's their intent? What is their message? You're not going to get that from an EMF meter. You're not going to get it from a REM pod. You're not going to get it from a recorder. You're going to get it from a good psychic or a good medium. And sure enough, what happened? The rabbi went in there that studied the Jewish Kabbalah. The Jewish rabbi went in there, and he did the ritual to open the portal, and they caught it on camera. The portal opened, the temperature dropped 20 degrees immediately. They could see this thing on camera where that wasn't before, and this thing was. So there it is. You bring in the mystics, you bring in the psychics, you bring in the shamans, you bring in the mediums, and that's how you have to interact with this. What they're doing scientifically is saying there's something here, but they're not understanding what's there. And to understand what's there, you have to go in, you have to communicate with it, either in a psychic way or a mediumistic way or shamanistically, whatever, and interact with that spirit, with that being, whatever it is, and say, okay, why are you here? What's your message? What are you trying to get across? And that can take a while. It's not always instantaneous.
Right. No, I agree with you. Let's branch away a little bit from spirits on average. Have you had encounters? There's a belief that people who are very, very gifted, chances are, have had extraterrestrial experiences, maybe contact, abduction. They've been experiencers of some sort, because apparently certain species are, or should I say races are, that's what they look for. They're attracted to. Have you had experiences yourself?
I've seen a lot of UFOs.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of UFOs. I don't know whose they are. I don't know what their intent or purpose is.
Exactly.
Well said. That's
could be
honest.
Government.
Yes.
Could be.
When did you start seeing them? How old were you? Was this like around the same time as your psychic ability?
Putting the puzzles together.
Yes.
This is really funny, Amelia, because when I was around 20, I had been reading professionally already for a couple of years, and I had this plethora of physical paranormal manifestations. And so I knew beyond a shadow of a doubt all that was absolutely real. And at the time, I had read all the books, the magazines, seen the interviews, and it was like, nope, don't believe in UFOs. Don't believe it. Ain't swallowing it. Can't buy it. Nope.
Wow.
So
That's a 20-year-old speaking. Yeah.
Yeah. And it was like, no, just don't buy it. And in spite of all these paranormal experiences and everything I'd had, I was like, no, this just doesn't ring true with me. So I had been to this particular place, and I didn't own a bike at the time. I had this Oldsmobile Vista Cruiser station wagon. God, I love that behemoth. That was wonderful.
My dad had one.
Oh my God, that was the greatest car ever, absolutely ever. If I drove it pedal to the metal, I got 11 miles to the gallon. If I nursed it was his I got 11 miles to the gallon.
Yeah, it was his favorite car.
So anyways, I was at this place, and this is in West Texas, and we're in the tip end of Tornado Alley. And I grew up with this hideous, foul, violent weather in Texas. And it is violent. It's hideous. And softball-sized hailstones and damaging winds and tornadoes and lightning and all kinds of nonsense. So I come out of this building, and my car, my Oldsmobile Vista Cruiser, is parked in this parking lot that's across a narrow 2-lane street. And I can see my car as soon as I exit the building. And when I come out, the first thing that hits me in the face is this big blast of wind. And I look up, and it's overcast. I'm like, oh, wow, here we go. Must be in for one of our storms. And I said, better make a run for the car. So I look across at my car, and down in the parking lot, connected to the low clouds up above, is this column of cloud coming down and resting in the parking lot, touching the parking lot right by my car. And as I watch this thing, it's like rotating and undulating, and there's these glowing orbs of color that emerge from the cloud and recede back in, all over, up and down the cloud. And they're fluorescent, green, red, orange, yellow, blue. And I'm looking at that, and I said, okay, I'm 20 years old. I thought I was healthy. I thought I had a normal mind. I've gone nuts. This is it. I'm just going to go get in my car. I'm going to go to the hospital. I'm going to check myself.
That's him. Yes. Right.
And I'm serious. That was the first thought that went through my head.
Wow.
So I sat there and watched this thing a little bit longer. And down in the parking lot, there's like some debris, some litter, paper cups, papers, whatever. Around the base of this thing, it's perfectly still. They're not blowing. They're not moving or anything else. And I'm like, okay, further evidence that I've gone nuts. I'm hallucinating. And then I get this overwhelmingly odd urge to walk toward the cloud.
No.
So I take a few steps toward it, and it moves toward me. And I stop, and it stops, and I back up, and it backs up. So I walk toward it again. It comes toward me in the parking lot, moves forward, and I stop. It stops. I back up. It backs up.
Because like, that's okay, not weird.
Definitely crazy. Weird. Definitely lost my mind. Wow. Well, about this time, the door opens. This guy whacks me in the back with the door. And he says, oh, I'm sorry. What are you doing standing close to the building? And without waiting for me to answer, he looks up and he goes, oh, boy, it looks like we're in for it. And then he looks across the street and he goes, what in the world is that? And I'm like, hallelujah, I'm not crazy.
You're not the only one seeing this.
Yeah. So I said, watch this. And I walk towards the cloud. It comes toward me. I back up. It backs up. Oh, and I look at him and I say, isn't that the weirdest thing you've ever seen? He looks at me like I'm the weirdest thing he's ever seen. He's like, bye. And he's out of there. It scared him to death. His car's parked the other way. So off he goes. Here I am alone again with the thing. I'm stuck there. I'm like, so what do I do now? So all of a sudden it lifts back up into the clouds above and they all start rushing across. So I'm like, okay, run for the car, get in the car. I'm like, what in God's name was that? So I start the car up and I start to drive. Now I know this town like the back of my hand, literally, still do to this day. And as I'm driving, it starts to rain. Now this is not an everything's bigger in Texas story. In Texas, in 20 minutes, it can flood your yard, flood underpasses, flood streets. It can rain that hard. But this is a rain unlike anything I've ever seen. I've got my lights on. I've got my wipers on high. They're doing absolutely nothing. My visibility, literally, no exaggeration, is 1 to 2 feet beyond the hood of my car.
Oh, that's scary.
That's as far as, frightening. That's as far as I can see. And there are cars angle parked on the street, and I can't see them out my passenger side window. And I'm like, man, I can't keep driving, but I can't stop. Somebody's going to hit me. I don't want to sideswipe these cars. I don't want to hit somebody in front of me. And I'm poking along, and all of a sudden, I see this bumper appear, and I jam on my brakes. And there's a person behind me. They come up, and I can finally see their headlights. They jam on their brakes to keep from hitting me. Excuse me. And I see this little tiny red glow of the stoplight up here. And I'm like, oh my God, we're all going to die. And it's like, how can I keep driving this way? You know, I'm going to hit somebody. Somebody's going to hit me. I'm going to sideswipe one of these cars over here. So the light changes, and where the street was, there was a Sears Roebuck store there. And in the back, they had this large parking lot. And I thought, okay, if I can creep along and get into that parking lot, I'll park. I don't care, straight or not, crooked or not, whatever. I'll jump out. I'll be soaked to the bone. I don't care. But I'll go down the basement, look at the sporting goods till the storm passes, and I can drive home when it's safe. So I'm poking along, and I'm trying to keep from hitting the car in front of me. And the car in back of me is trying to keep from hitting me. And I'm leaning over trying to see the angle park cars, and I can't. And as I'm leaned over, I'm grabbed onto the steering wheel, and I'm leaned over in the bench seat. I'm trying to see the cars, angle park cars, out of my passenger window. Now, with the rain coming down that hard, now it's not. It's completely gone. That fast. Finger snap. Completely gone, completely clear. There's not a mist hitting the windshield. That is still cloudy, still low clouds, but perfect visibility's returned. I can see all the way down the street behind me, all the way in front of me, all the way around. Not a mist hitting the windshield. I reach up and turn my wipers off, and I'm like, what in the world? And then the people that have been driving our way in the oncoming lane begin to swerve over into our lane and almost hit cars. And people are honking, and people are yelling and everything. And I'm like, what in God's it? We've all gone nuts. What's happening? What in the world is this? And people are starting to jump out of their cars onto the street and point up. And people are rolling their car windows down and pointing up. Like, okay, what is going on? And so I look where they're pointing, and over the back of the Sears building, about 30 to 50 feet above the Sears building, is this shiny silver metallic disc about 30 to 50 feet in diameter, hovering there over the back of the Sears building. No sound, no smoke, no flame, no nothing. Just sitting there hovering. And I literally did a cartoon eye rub. It's like, no.
Wow.
I look back up, and it's there. And I'm like, oh my God. So I start to grab my door handle. I'm going to get out and get a better look. And as I do that,
why?
I was thinking that exactly, Michelle. Like, why? I'd be trying to figure out how to get out of there, not stay there and have a conversation.
I got to go see this thing. I got to get closer.
I'm like, beam me up.
So as I grab my door handle, the UFO just barely perceptibly moves towards us, just a tiny little bit. And the second that it moves that way, the clouds come from behind and cover it up. And right now, the rain's back in full force like it was before, instantly. And I'm like, holy God. So there's this guy in front of me, and he turns into the Sears parking lot. And I'm like, I don't care if I hit this guy. I don't care if somebody hits me. My insurance will cover it. I'm going to talk to this guy. And we park, and I see his dome light comes on. He's right next to me, and he jumps out, and he starts running for the store. I jump out, and the rain is coming down so hard it literally hurts. And I have to shield my eyes, and I run. I get in the store. So Sears has an airlock in the back, a vestibule, and a set of double doors you go in, and then there's double doors to go into the store. Well, in this vestibule, they have the mat. You wipe your feet. And then down to the left's the basement to the sporting goods. So I run there and I catch up, and he's just standing on that mat inside the store, dripping water. We both look like we just got out of the shower. And he wore glasses and I didn't. And I remember he hadn't even wiped the water off of his glasses. And he was just standing, staring down like this. And I walked around in front of him. It took him a good little bit to recognize that I was even there. And he looked up, and I said, excuse me, but did you see what I just saw? And he said, yeah, but I damn sure ain't going to tell nobody. and he sidestepped me and he walked through the store. I knew that's all I'd get out of him. Back then, you just didn't talk about it. You were touched in the head, you were crazy, you were made fun of, you could lose your job, whatever. And so, but at least there was that validation verification for me. And so I had to change denominations. I had to change religions. I had to become a believer because I saw it in the presence of witnesses. They saw it first. And there it was in broad daylight, no discounting it, there it was. And I've seen a bunch since then, but I haven't jumped on the bandwagon of I know who they are and they communicate with me and they tell me this and they tell me that.
That you know of. That you know of. But with your senses and your abilities, do you feel that they're something to be concerned about or something to fear? Do you think they're here to help?
Well, let me tell you what I've extrapolated from all the experiences that people have. I mean, number one, you look at it, you've got abductions. Now, if we count the abduction cases as real, there's a lot of verifiable, credible ones, Travis Walton, Barney and Betty Hill, so on and so forth, that are extremely credible, extremely believable. And if that's true, if you're taken against your will, that's an act of hostility. Okay? There's no other way around that. If I come and grab Amelia and take her and duct tape her and throw her in the car and she doesn't want that, that's hostility. That's violating her will. That's violating...
I agree.
Yeah. So that's something to be concerned about. And then you have the possible cat mutilations tied in with that. And then one of the things that I've been concerned about is if I'm coming down the road and Michelle's over there on the side of the road with a flat tire. And I pull over and I say, hey, you got a spare? And she goes, yeah. And I said, you got a jack? Yeah, but I don't know how to use it. Well, guess what? I'm going to jack up your car. I'll change your tire for you. Okay. Or if I pull up and do you have a spare? Do you have a jack? No. Well, do you have AAA? No. Well, I do. I'll call. I'll get them out here. They'll fix you up. I'll wait with you. Make sure you're okay till they come. We have that milk of human kindness. We may be losing it a little as we go here, but I think most of us still have that. Now, if we extrapolate that to alien species, and there's somebody out there that would give a damn, to the point that, well, look, these poor earthlings, we can't stop the volcanoes or the floods or the hurricanes or the tornadoes or the lava flows, but, we kicked cancer's butt a long time ago. Let's meet them out in the woods and say, here, take this, go to St. Jude, heal these little kids. Wouldn't there be somebody in all this advanced intelligence and capability that would have at least that little bit of modicum of sympathy or empathy, or if nothing else?
They haven't. How do we know it's just the powers that be that are not? There's all kinds of documented cases where ET has given things to help people, but how do we know it's that the people in charge? I personally know someone whose family member gave a cure for a specific cancer. It goes back, going back to being a healer in the late 1700s.
We allow it, exactly,
and it all disappeared.
Yeah. Exactly right.
At least to most of us.
That's one of the things we have to be concerned about. Sure. But we have to say, okay, if these beings are that far advanced and that capable, isn't there some way around that? You would think logically that there would be. And then Rob Shelsky, the MUFON investigator, I listened to a podcast of his where he said, where is that story of I was lost in the woods at night and feared for my life, and all of a sudden a UFO came over, shone a light down, led me out of the woods by that light to safety. Where's that story? We don't have that, So this is my concern that, we don't know what the motivations are and what the interactions are and what the things are. And we don't have enough reliable things to hang our hats on from what we've been told from people that I deem very unreliable and not credible at all. So I have concerns there. I have worries there. And one of the things that I discount is when people say, well, look, these beings have to be so far ahead of us, and we can't understand. Oh, BS. Look. If there's a guy here on Earth that's smart enough to build a car from the ground up, my uncle was one of them. My uncle was a mechanic and a machinist, and he built a car from the ground up from parts. If there's a mechanic that's smart enough to build a car from the ground up from parts, he may not be able to do his own tax return. Okay? So just because he's smart in one area doesn't mean he's smart in another. Just because these guys have figured out a way to zip around the universe without leaving sonic booms doesn't mean that they're smart in other ways, or moral in other ways, or ethical in other ways, or empathetic in other ways. So we have to look at this in a skeptical type of attitude and say, okay, look, we don't know,
Right.
and the government finally has fed us this little bit of dangle this little thing before us.
Preliminary
Very little
disclosure.
minuscule thing,
Yeah.
but they did acknowledge that they are physical objects. They're picked up on multiple sensors, and nearly everybody in government now has walked it right up to the edge of saying, hey, folks, these aren't ours. This is not earthly technology. So basically, everybody has been saying that.
We're going to hold that thought for a moment, and we're going to pick it up right after we do our sponsor and station ID.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Oh,
The
what
tech
a
stuff
night.
first. Yes.
It's already that time. My goodness.
Mm.
You're listening to The Outer Realm with Michelle Desrochers and myself, Amelia Pisano. Tonight, our special guest is John Russell. He is incredible. And if you haven't heard it and you're just tuning in, give it a half hour and come back for the archive and share it up with your friends. This you don't want to miss. We are live from the gorgeous city of New Orleans, and we're live on 105.3 FM radio. You can catch us right now if you're on YouTube at UFO Paranormal Radio, UFO Gods and Extraterrestrials, International Public Radio, and coming back soon, UPRN Talk Radio. Tonight's intro and outro is from the award-winning Dr. Snick, the Sonic Surgeon, Justin Snicker. Amazing. Google him and you can listen to all of his written music, and his voice is on our intro and outro, and you don't want to miss that. You want to check out the rest of his music, especially right now for Halloween. He's got a lot of specials going on. So make sure you Google Dr. Snick, the Sonic Surgeon, Justin Snicker. Tonight and every night is sponsored by the good folks at Folgers Coffee. No one loves you more than Michelle and I. Thank you, Folgers.
So let's get back to disclosure.
Right.
What I find interesting now, of course, is the whole. I'm a believer in, you have, government and religious sects who, the control thing, right? Control the masses, keep everybody even keel. Yeah. And when people get to a point where it's like, that doesn't really bother me. Because, let's face it, everyone's got a camera phone now. We probably see more out there. The people post more out there than the government. So the government's like, their disclosure is so minuscule that people like, go to YouTube over here and check this out, or check this out. Right. Do you feel that maybe because people I don't think people are all that frightened of it. So now it's like they're losing the edge of control, false flag, invasion, things like that. That seems to be the norm. These guys are swarming us or following us. They're chasing our planes. Are they though?
Well, we don't know. We know what our government tells us, and beyond that, we don't know. But what I was going to say before the break on, there's a podcast that I've been on, and these guys do the big phone home after ET phone home. Right. So it's the big phone home. They've done a couple of them now, and on the latest one, they had a congressman from Tennessee on there, and he said, look, it ain't Earth technology. It's not ours. Right. And of course, he's privy to the classified report that, we wish that we could get. Right. And everybody that's privy to that's like, oh my God, it reads like a science fiction novel. And we're like, oh, Jesus, release it, would you? So anyways, this congressman from Tennessee said that he believes that the government made a minor mistake in releasing even that little, 9 pages, even that little report to the public, because it's like a little chink in the armor, and they made a mistake doing that. And he said, if we will push now harder than we've ever pushed before, that we can exploit that, and we may finally get some full disclosure. And he said, if we do not push, then the government's going to fix that chink, seal it up, and give us another 4 or 5 years of the pablum that we've already been fed, and we're going to lose our opportunity, and that's going to be it.
I agree and I don't agree, only because, like I say now, with the public being out there having their own experiences, they're reporting their experiences. I can only imagine how many don't report. they're posting it all over social media. You see private videos and photos
Right.
all over the place.
But the problem
How do
is,
you back away from something like that and try to
well,
cover it up? How do you stop the public from doing it?
very easily, because if it doesn't have official government stamp, official government approval, and official government recognition, there's a vast majority of Americans that are going to go, see, ain't nothing to it. If there was, the government would be all over.
Because they don't want to maybe acknowledge it. Maybe there is a
Yeah,
fear. Because
yeah, it is.
there
Yeah,
most people can be like, that's pretty compelling. We can make up our minds for ourselves. Like
mhm,
that's sort of hard to explain. Not that they're going to believe it 100%,
yeah.
but I would think that it would certainly open their eyes, and the power of
Well,
suggestion, make them
some people
explore
it
it a bit
does,
more.
but some people it doesn't. I mean, there are still so many people that make fun of psychics, and they make fun of paranormal experiences, and they
Hmm.
make fun of
True.
UFOs. And then there's the fear factor. I remember I went to, excuse me, I went in 1998 in Roswell. They had this Alien Encounter 98.
Right.
And I went and gave psychic readings there. And Stanton Friedman was there. I got to see him lecture in person, which was awesome. And one morning I decided I'm going to go see the Roswell UFO Museum. You can't go to Roswell, not see the UFO Museum.
Of course.
So I got up early and went, and it wasn't open. So I'm peeping through the windows and standing out on the sidewalk, just walking back and forth, waiting for it to open. Not much foot traffic, not many people around. And this lady comes walking down the sidewalk, and she nods to me, and I nod to her, and we say hi. And she stops, and she said, "Waiting to see the UFO museum." I said, "Yeah, not open yet. I'm sitting here waiting to go. It looks pretty exciting." She goes, "Oh," she said, "Is this your the first time at the museum?" And I said, "Yes, ma'am." I said, "It is." And she said, "Do you live here in New Mexico?" I said, "No." I said, "I was born in Carlsbad, oddly enough, and have never been back. Never lived here. My family moved to Texas. I grew up in Texas, and so I'm back here now, but I've never lived here, and this is my first time to Roswell." She
Hmm.
goes, "Oh, well, why are you here? What do you do?" I thought, "Oh boy, here it comes. Now
There we go. Inquisition.
I'm going to be labeled a wacko here." So, I said, "Well, I'm a psychic, and I'm giving readings at Alien Encounter 98." And she looked at me and she goes, "So you'll believe me then?" And I'm like, "Oh, okay, what's coming now? What's coming now?" And she said,
Uh-oh.
"When my brother and I were young, when we were kids, we were outside playing in the yard, and we saw the UFO come over and crash." And I was like, "Lady, you have got my attention."
Right.
So she said, "We knew it wasn't a plane. We knew it wasn't a helicopter. We knew it wasn't a blimp. We knew it wasn't a weather balloon." She said, "It was obviously a UFO. We saw it very clearly. And from the way that it moved as it went through the air, we could discern that it was in trouble of some kind. And then we saw it go off over in the distance and crash." And I was like, "Holy God, thank you for sending me here this morning. This is one of the greatest things ever. I've got
It's
an
even better than the
eyewitness."
museum.
Yeah, I've got an eyewitness account to the
Yeah.
crash. My God, thank you guys. So we talk a little bit more, and I said, I said, "Why aren't there more people like you that were eyewitnesses coming forward with this compelling story?"
Hmm.
And she said, "Well," she said, "let me tell you what happened." She said, "There were people from the military, people that we presumed were military, people we thought might have been from the government, people we didn't know where the hell they were from. And basically, they would come to us and go, 'If you tell anyone about this, your bones are going to be found out in the desert.'"
Wow.
Yeah.
That's harsh.
And if you read back from many of the accounts of the Roswell experiences, they were told this. They all received these threats. And she said, "If you were someone that was like, well, bring it. I don't care. I'm not afraid of you. Didn't matter about you. But if you had family, if you had kids, you didn't want them hurt. So you would
Right.
shut up. You would be quiet."
True.
And so she said that was the overriding atmosphere that we experienced here in Roswell during that time. And all of a sudden she stopped and she looked this way like this. And she said, "I've said too much. I have to go. I'm sorry. Bye." And walked off down the street. So all those years later, that fear was still that prevalent. So we have the fear to deal with still with people. We have the the fact that people just they want to poo-poo it or make fun of it or whatever, we have that to deal with. So we have so many things that are still in the way.
Healthy curiosity, though. Look at Skinwalker Ranch. People are just so.
You know, I've been on podcasts. We've talked about Skinwalker, and in the chat, you see people just
That's
going,
the latest
what
one.
BS, what stupidity, what nonsense. So, you know, we still have this huge thing to overcome. And then when you get people like Anjali involved in the thing, you know, that's serious research and serious interest back years and years and years and years, you know, because there's always the promise. I've seen these beings in person. I've communicated with them in person. They're ready to communicate. They're ready to be filmed. They're ready to come out. We're taking a TV crew. We're taking celebrities. We're taking a mainstream news crew. In 2 months' time, this is going to be national news. Well, way more than 2 months have passed. Nothing. And this is the type of thing that people look at when they start investigating UFOs and looking at UFOs, and they get filled with this nonsense. They go, well, see, there's nothing to it. It's just a bunch of idiocy. So, you know, that type of thing shoots us in the foot and does us more harm than it ever will any good. And that's one of the major things we have to deal with in investigating this and doing this.
So it's better to investigate it silently and come up with the findings and then share it. And you find it would be just more credible.
Yeah. I've got a little friend that has to say hi real quick.
Oh, ha, ha.
So cute. Hi, baby.
Oh, oh, we love when the pets join in the interviews.
Yeah. Well, we all have dogs. That's why.
This is Bugsy.
Oh, I love Bugsy. Hi, baby.
He's the sweetest little angel on the planet. He's just the absolute best and just my wonderful little buddy. And so
welcome to the other realm, Bugsy.
And he loves to appear on podcast. When I'm on podcast, he loves to come and get on camera.
That's so funny. I love that. You need to start his own. You need to start an Instagram account for Bugsy,
right? Or a YouTube channel or something.
Yeah.
But I think these types of things, when we have people that, you know, make these ridiculous statements and do these types of things, you know, it sets us so far back. And any of the skeptics that are there, they pounce on that and go, see, it's all just stupidity. It's all nonsense. It's all, you know. And so those are still the things that we're dealing with. We've made a little headway, but not near enough. And every time somebody like that comes along, it shoots us in the foot and sets us back.
Do you find it's the same with the paranormal field, all these TV shows? And
absolutely. Because everybody watches the shows and they believe that's what the psychic realm, the paranormal realm is actually like. And that's what it's about. And then you have to try and correct that and overcome that. And, you know, if somebody can get a New York Times best-selling book, or if somebody can get a TV show or something that people associate with credibility, and then they go spew this nonsense out there, people cotton on to it, people buy it. Yeah. And then you go and you say, no, it's not like that. Then you're the bad guy, because who are you to talk against this guy who has his own show and his own book and his own this and his own that? It's like, so there's a lot of uphill battles that we still
I mean, it's got to raise awareness somehow. I think people have to show, you know, I mean, I think the people behind the camera have to show, or in front of the camera have to show due diligence in explaining things to people. Yeah. But I'm glad that people, in a way, witness it, but they should do their own research for sure. You know, because it's easy to be, I always call them the couch investigators, you know, right. And some people have no choice. They really don't have anything within their community that they can go out and explore, you know. Yeah. So it's all they have. But there's still, you know, the public libraries, or still the internet where you can actually do some proper research and have a look to see what it's really about. Like you managed to do it at a young age. You know,
without the internet.
No, yeah, exactly.
That's a lot of books. That's a lot of books.
That's why I mentioned public library.
That, and you had to leave by a certain time as well. Like you were limited. It's not like the internet that everybody's searching everything, and everybody believes that everything on the internet is real. That is the same for television. And we discussed this even last night. We said that you have to always remember that these shows are first and foremost entertainment.
Bingo.
And you have to understand that. And I don't believe that You can sit there and criticize or make fun of something unless you're actually in the field. And I always say, if you want to know what shows are really good and what's got integrity, ask someone who's really good in a good medium or investigator, and they'll tell you the truth. And please don't try that at home. That's just an added.
And I've talked to a lot of people that have been producers on these shows or involved in the production of these shows, and I've talked to on-air talent in a lot of these shows, and they say, like, the producers will say, "Hey, right here, can you work up a cry, or can you scream and run out of the room?"
You can't even get me started on that.
And,
but with that said, there's still some really good quality shows out there. And there are repeats of there's a few, and there are repeats of ones that were done in the beginning before this started become a formula. And
there's a thing called like creative control too. It is about the fear factor. It is about the ratings. It is, the people in front of the camera don't always have that option. So
I would have given my eye teeth if my pilot could have aired, and if we could have gone to series. I had signed a contract to go to series with the History Channel, had a 5-year contract, and no kidding, the pilot that we shot would have been the standard, the bar that every paranormal show had to come up to forever and a day. It was that good. We approached it respectfully because I insisted that we do so, and we got paranormal phenomena on camera. The interviews were dignified and responsible and good. We didn't have any melodrama. We didn't have any nonsense. And it was just a class thing from the get-go. But unfortunately, it never aired. But it would have been a tour de force, I tell you.
They have to follow their formulas. And unfortunately, unfortunately, you have to do it, and every show will follow the formula, sometimes for years at a time. Then all of a sudden, it switches. Then it's like, and everybody gets on that. Every show has to have its own gimmick.
Yep, exactly right. Right. And it's just like in the publishing industry. I've got these books out, and I've been a writer for a long time, and I've followed the publishing industry for a long time. And in one of the writing magazines, they had several prominent New York agents come together and have a roundtable discussion. And they said, "Look, we're all looking for the next, Water for Elephants or whatever. We're all looking for that book. We don't care what else is out there. We don't care how talented you are, how original you are. It's the formula. This is what's selling, and that's what we're looking for." And it's ridiculous. It's just crazy. But that goes back to the whole thing being a bottom line industry. And used to, when you were a writer, the publishing companies, the editors, and everybody would get together and develop you and invest in you. And they wanted you to produce several books for them, and each one get better and better, and each one sell more and more. But they wanted the quality of the material. And nowadays, what people don't know is that you can have a bestseller with a publishing house, and your next book be dropped. Nope, you're out of here. That's it.
We're in the digital age. It's a little bit different. Like, I'm still old school, where I need to hold a book in my hands, and I love the smell of it, and I collect old antique books. But I think it's our generation kind of thing too. And now everybody's on Kindle, and so they just want them popped out like crazy, because people will buy like 10 at a time.
Stolen too. Like, we know people have had their books stolen, just show up on Amazon under a different cover, but it's the exact same.
Right.
You have to really be careful now. It's just like the work isn't even their own, and your credit for your story is going elsewhere.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's like, it would make a great movie, and then somebody else gets it.
Yeah, exactly right.
You have to copyright everything, and even then, it doesn't really save you.
Even then, it doesn't really protect it, right? Yeah.
I know. So, I don't know. I think that the work you do is really important, and I hope that the journey continues for you. Is there something that you're looking that you might want to branch out to with respects to investigating? Like, I know you talk about doppelgangers.
Right.
Those are always interesting. A lot of misconceptions about
What
Doppelgangers
those.
are
is
very
the story
interesting.
on them? Do you die because you're seeing one? Like, what is
No,
the story?
no,
No,
you don't.
I've never
no.
seen one, so
Because
I don't know.
That
I've
could be
seen
dimensional
several, and I'm
too.
still here, so I'm okay.
Right.
But let me tell you the most interesting doppelganger I saw. Um, and this one is interesting because it involved a doppelganger car as well as a doppelganger person.
Oh, that's crazy.
I was
Wow.
dating this lady that was very pretty and very flashy, very, very unique in appearance. And she had this unique car, and she had this decoration in this car so that if she were to park in a parking lot and couldn't find her car, if there was another similar car or whatever, she could look for that decoration in her car and find her car. So I was out one morning, I guess about 8 o'clock, and I'm going down the street there in town back when I lived back in West Texas. And in the distance, I see her car coming, and I'm looking really closely. And I said, okay, that's got to be her. What in the world is she doing out this early? Because she just didn't get out that early. And it gets closer, and I said, I'm sure that's her. It's got to be her because she has this unique appearance, unique silhouette, or whatever, if you will. And as it gets a little bit closer, I look, and sure enough, it's her. It's her car. There's her decoration in the car, everything. So I begin to wave and flash my lights, and she doesn't respond. And I'm like, well, what in the world? And she gets closer, and I'm waving, and I'm flashing the lights. And she gets close enough that beyond any shadow of a doubt, it's definitely her. No question at all. It's definitely her car. There's definitely the decoration in the car, the unique decoration in the car. Absolutely no doubt whatsoever. And so I'm like waving frantically and flashing the lights, and she's just staring straight ahead. And as she gets close enough to me that she's almost parallel, I look over at her, and she has the strangest, oddest expression of any human being I have ever seen on her face. And I'm like, what in God's name? And she's just like gripping the wheel and just going down the road and never looks over at me, staring straight ahead. And I'm like, what in God's name? So I thought, well, I'll call her phone, leave a message, and bust her chops and say, hey, what's the deal here?
Right.
So I dial her number, and 2 rings go by, and she picks up. And I'm watching her in her car in my rearview mirror going down the road as she answers the phone. And I'm like, what in God's name are you doing home? And she goes, well, idiot, where else would I be? I live here, don't I? And I was like, oh my God. And I'm talking to her, and I'm watching her in the car go down the road in the rearview mirror. I'm still seeing it. I'm like, holy cow.
That's
so
creepy.
We talked about that, and I told her, I said, well, this is what just happened. And she's like, oh my God, well, we'll talk about it later when you come over. And we never could assign any meaning to it. Neither one of us could ever figure out
what's your explanation for a doppelganger? Interdimensional, parallel dimensions, multiverse.
I don't know, but to see this physical manifestation of not only her, but her car.
Yes.
That was just, so yeah, of all the doppelgangers I've experienced, that was the most weird one. That was the strangest.
So you've experienced more. This is like a normal thing for you, or what?
I've seen several others. But I'll tell you one of the most fun things. This will give you some chills. This was really creepy. I had this buddy of mine. He's on the other side now, and I'm an artist and a photographer, and he was an artist, and that's how we first met. And then he came to find out that I was a psychic, and so on and so forth. And we were drinking buddies. We'd go to the bar, and we had this nickname of the Toxic Twins. People go, oh, here come the Toxic Twins. And we'd cut up. I mean, nothing malicious, but, we'd cut up, and we'd raise Cain, do all this kind of stuff. And, we'd do stuff like this to each other. One night I was sitting there at the bar, and my lap starts getting really hot. And I'm like, what the heck? And I looked down, and he'd lit a match, tossed it on my lap, set my lap on fire. I had to find a glass of water and douse my lap to turn the fire out. And he looks over at me, So this is how we were with each other, And so he would go home, I'd go home, and I'd call him, and I'd say, hey, man, how you doing? You make it home okay? You watching TV? Going to go to sleep soon? Blah, blah, blah. And so we'd hang up, and I'd time it for like half an hour till I knew he was asleep, and then I'd call him back and wake him up and blather at him till he cursed me and hung up on me. So that was just kind of the banter we had. That was just kind of the relationship we had. So this is back, obviously, before cell phones. I had a cordless phone with a speed dial. You know, the numbers were programmed in. So I we had gone home, and I called him up and, you know, how you doing? And said good night, and set my timer while I'm watching TV on my watch, set my timer, and I'm like, it goes off, and I'm like, okay, now I'm going to disturb him. So I hit the speed dial number for him that I had just used on that phone 30 minutes earlier. And the phone rings, and this woman answers, hello. And I'm like, well, what's going on here? I know I hit the right button. I just used this button to call him. And I'm like, oh, I'm sorry. I said, is Bill there? And this should have been my clue, because she said, there's no Bill over here. And I was like, ooh, that should have been my first clue. There's no Bill here, but there's no Bill over here. Oh. And I said, well, ma'am, I'm sorry. I said, I was trying to call Bill, and I used the same number. I just called him a minute ago, and I'm kind of stammering. I'm confused, and I'm like, is this such and such a number? And she goes, this is John Russell, isn't it? And I'm like, holy friggin' cow. And I'm like, well, yes, ma'am. And I said, I'm sorry, but I don't recognize your voice. I said, who is this? And she goes, so this is John Russell. And I'm like, well, yeah. I said, yes, ma'am. But I said, I you know, are you at Bill Nunn's? I tried to call Bill, and I don't recognize your name. I'm sorry. I don't recognize your voice. And how do you know who I am? Who is this? And she goes, so this is John Russell. And I'm like,
we've established that.
Yeah. Yeah. I said, well, yes, ma'am. But I said, you know, who are you? What's your name? And she goes, I'm very tired now. I'm going to go to sleep. Good night. And hung up. And I'm like, oh, no, you don't. So I grabbed the phone. I hit the exact same button, and I get Bill.
Oh, come on.
And I said,
he
Bill,
didn't play a joke on you.
No, I said, Bill, I said, I have to ask you a question. I said, between the time I called earlier and now, did your phone ring? Mm-hmm. No. And I said, Bill, please, honest to God, I'll tell you tomorrow why, but be honest with me. Is there a woman there with you now? No. And so I asked him a few more questions. He thinks I've gotten way too drunk. He said, okay, John, we'll talk tomorrow. And I'm like, holy cow. So I hung up. So in trying to make sense out of that, I could come up with two things. His wife had died before he had. And so either maybe his wife on the other side had intercepted the call. Oh, so this is John Russell.
That's a huge possibility. They've been known to do that before, to get on telephones. Yeah.
There's just this strange woman on the other side that knows me and keeps tabs of me that I don't know, and she somehow managed to intercept the call. That's bizarre. Either way is creepy. Yes.
It is.
Yeah, it really is.
Because there's nothing weirder than a spirit or entity calling you by name. It just feels so personal. And
John Russell, my full name is you're John Russell. This is John Russell. I was like, oh my God. So that was one of the more bizarre experiences I had. That was pretty cool.
Oh my gosh.
That's my life. That's how I go through life.
Yeah, no kidding. That's fascinating. That's a book right in itself.
Yeah.
I'd be doing a book on doppelgangers because that's just like way out there. My gosh. Wow, I can't believe, that we're already at the top of the second hour. This is the part of the show where you promote yourself, tell people what you have coming up, tell people how to find you, whether it's for readings or stories or show ideas, or maybe they want you on their show, or promote.
Whatever, okay. Right. Well, if you would like a reading, I'm always taking new clients, and you can go to johnrussell.net. And all the information is there. I've got over 80 client testimonials, and I've got my credentials, my qualifications, everything there, how to get a reading, and so on and so forth. So johnrussell.net. If you're interested in the books, they're available at all major booksellers online. Barnes & Noble, Amazon, Books A Million, a lot of mom and pop stores online. Target and Walmart carry them online. For more information, If you want to find out more before you buy, you can go to writingwithghost.net or aknockintheattic.net, and there's information there as well as links there to buy at the major sellers and so on and so forth. Like I say, I've done over 70 podcasts this year by the time I wind up. On my website, johnrussell.net, there's a media appearances page. You can click on that, and it's got all my past media experiences, my current media appearances and interviews, and the ones with links you can click, you can listen to or watch on YouTube if that's available, and so on and so forth. So tons of stuff. And
Wow.
always look forward to hearing from people.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for joining us. It was just so much fun. It was so informative. I can't believe how fast it went, though.
I know, way too fast. It was a good time. I appreciate y'all inviting me. It's been a pleasure meeting you both.
We'll
It's been a
do it
pleasure and
again.
an honor for us. Thank you.
Yeah, we book
Love
months ahead,
hearing
as you had to wait, but we will definitely bring you back on again in the beginning of the new year.
Love to. Yeah, we haven't scratched the surface, so we can talk about a lot more.
I like that.
Yes.
I like that.
That would be a
that's
lot of fun.
fantastic.
You have a radio voice.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Exactly. So thank you. Thank you for
Thank
joining
you
us.
guys. I appreciate it very
Thank
much.
you
It's been a ton
so
of fun.
much. Stay safe
Thank
on
you.
your
We can try.
travels.
Will do. Thank you so
All
much.
Thank you. Well, we've come to the end of another fantastic segment here on the Outer Realm. I cannot believe how fast it went. My gosh. Thank you all for tuning in this evening. Thanks to everyone in chat. You just lit up the chat room. That was fantastic. Thank you. Big thank you to our special guest, John Russell, our producer, Joe Montaldo. And of course, the biggest thank yous go to Folgers Coffee, who do sponsor us. And of course, Dr. Snick, aka Justin Snicker, for providing us again with his music and his voice for the outro and the intro here in the Outer Realm. Please remember to stop by International Public Radio, UFO Paranormal Radio, and subscribe on YouTube. While you're at it, feel free to stop by the Outer Realm on Facebook and show us a little bit of love. Want to contact us for any reason, preferably better reasons, or you want to be a guest or see a guest, catch us on the Outer Realm Contact at gmail.com. Again, the Outer Realm Contact at gmail.com. Next week, we'll bring 2 more guests on, one being Wednesday, one of our frequent flyers, Jason Hewlett, and he will be joined by Peter Dunn, and they will be discussing their new book, I Want to Believe. So we know that Jason's always a boatload of fun. I have no doubt it's going to be a great show. And Thursday night, of course, keeping up with Spooky Month, welcomes for the first time Mr. Vince Wilson, and he will be discussing different aspects of what he does within the paranormal. So until then, Amelia and I thank you. Have a fantastic and safe weekend, and we shall see you next week. Thank you.
You have been listening to The Outer Realm with Michelle Desrochers and Amelia Pisano, airing live every Wednesday and Thursday evening, 9 to 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 to 10 p.m. Central, on the United Public Radio Network, 105.3 FM in New Orleans.